HM Productions presents White Devil Podcast.
Hi everybody, and welcome to the White Devil Minicast number 2. This is TheHande hosting you, and as you can tell, I am doing this alone today, so I hope everybody will realize, because Retro Kaiser is not here, this is not the White Devil Minicast, where we will be answering the questions that people sent us on the original video, on the podcast announcement video. That will be coming shortly. I will release the actual podcast and the minicast on YouTube at the same time. And so that will be White Devil Minicast number 3. That will be the one where we will answer the questions that people sent us for that podcast. And the podcast, of course, forthcoming. I'm recording this way before we are recording that actual podcast. First of all, a couple of things about the minicast. First of all, I want to apologize right ahead that I forgot to put in a link to the MP3 download of the first minicast, but I have changed that, and you can now, if you go back to the first minicast's YouTube page, you can find a link there. If you want to download the MP3 and listen to it on your phone or whatever device you like to listen podcasts on, you can do that. And it is, and like I said, it's literally a download link. You get the whole podcast. It's free. It's just on Internet Archives. I've never charged ever for people to, hear my voice for any reason, actually. And to say a little bit about the Q&A that we will be doing, we will do that with Kaiser after all. The reason we're doing the Q&A before the actual podcast as a mini-cast is because it's going to be super, super late for Kaiser, and also because we have such a huge roster of guests. I'm hoping that all of them will make it, but I have a nasty suspicion that some of them might end up having to drop out at the last second. It's known to happen before, especially with these really big podcast guests. And I never take it personally or anything. The reason we're having such a huge cast anyways, specifically because we're doing the match game that time around. Okay, and to go back to the minicast a little bit, and before we get to the topic of this minicast and why I'm doing it, is that we're going to be doing, like I said, we've already done one minicast with Kaiser. There's going to be this, which will be the second minicast, and then we will do the third minicast, which is the Q&A, and we will then assess, if you will. We will look at how people respond to the minicast and see just how people feel about it. So first of all, I just want to say that even though we're splitting off the Q&A, I want to split off the Q&A from the main podcast because we've had a big problem with the podcast for a while now, that it's gotten kind of big and ungainly, and doing a 2-hour, 3-hour podcast, who's going to listen to that? Nobody. So that's the thing. I've tried to find ways of shortening the podcast, and the thing is, the introductions and the topic discussion, we can those are things that can bleed into each other very naturally. You can't really do that with the Q&A. So if the mini-cast in and of itself is something that people don't like, we'll stop doing that. But we may keep it around for the Q&As, because I kind of want to keep I want to find a way to just takes a little bit of the flab of the main podcasts. It's basically what I'm getting at. And if people do like these mini-casts, if people like these shorter podcasts, then I would really love for people to be able to get into podcasts, because I get it. People don't have the time to listen to a podcast necessarily. Some people listen to it while they're doing other stuff. That's fine. I like that. But yeah, and also, yes, these minicasts do count as actual full episodes. I didn't say that at the beginning of the first minicast. That was partly because I wasn't sure yet, and that was also the reason why there wasn't an MP3 link before, because the primary target for the minicast was YouTube. So I wanted to put it on YouTube, and that was the point of it. And because of that, the whole MP3 thing just kind of slipped my mind. But now it's up. And this podcast will also be up for download. The link is in the description if you want to download it. And so this is officially White Devil Podcast number 25. And counting the minicast that we will be making before the match game episode will actually be White Devil Podcast number 27 by the time that comes out. If that, I know it's confusing. So I'm going to keep calling this minicast number 2, and we're going to be calling the other one minicast number 3. But if you go to the episode listings on my blog and the official White Devil pages, then that's where... Actually, I forgot to put the link into the White Devil main pages as well. I've mentioned that in the comments, and hopefully people have picked up on it. But so, what is this podcast about? Let's finally get to the topic that I wanted to talk about, because I've gone on for over 5 minutes already, and we haven't gotten to the meat of the discussion yet. A discussion, really. It's just me here. So, okay, so this week, the week that I'm recording this on, a new video came up on my channel, and it was the Temple of the Sun He-Man episode review video. And it was funny because I think we were discussing this with Retro Kaiser on the previous minicast. And when the discussion came to the fact that I had not done a He-Man review this year, that was very interesting, because then, of course, I immediately thought, okay, I have to do it now. I have to do this. And the Temple of the Sun, well, more specifically, Trouble's middle name is a He-Man video that's been a bit long in the tooth. It's been a while. It's been taking a little longer to get to than I should, because, of course, if people still remember, last year, or the year before that, 2015, 2016, I don't even remember when, I posted the 4th, and at this very moment, the very final episode of Cartoon Theory, which sadly, which that's a series that's unfortunately bitten the dust, so there will probably not be any more Cartoon Theory episodes at all, because I was forced to take down episode number 2, and I'm not sure if I'm able to put it back up. And also the voiceover on that was really bad, so I feel like I want to kind of redo it, but at the same time I don't, so I don't know. But anyway, I was forced to take down the final episode, which was What Does Orko Really Look Like? And at the end of that episode, I was talking about Trouble's middle name, because Trouble's middle name, of course, is a very important episode if we're talking about what does Orko look like, because it's an episode that features a Trollin who shows his face. So, and while watching that episode, this is important, I discovered that I had made a mistake in an older He-Man episode review. When I did the game plan episode review, I said that was Negator's one and only appearance, and of course it wasn't, because Negator came back. Like, this happens all the fucking time, like, with me, and I make mistakes. Okay, I do make mistakes, but because that was the thing that launched into this. Then okay, now I have to review Trouble's middle name. I remember Trouble's middle name only because it did feature a Trollin who showed his face. I forgot completely that it had anything to do with Negator, and then the fact that it was said in the Temple of the Sun reminded me that there is an episode called the Temple of the Sun in the first season, and I remembered liking it. We'll get to that in a minute. But so, I decided, okay, this had to be something, okay, this video had to be made, but I went back and forth, and when I had to remove the Orko video, I kind of saw that as a carte blanche. Well, now it's not on the internet anymore, I don't have to review the episode if I don't want to, but I decided, you know what, I gotta get this, I gotta get it done and off my chest, and it'll be done, and then, that's it. And there's lots of He-Man stuff that I have yet to have reviewed, and I also think I need to, before we get to the Temple of the Sun video and the thing I wanted to talk about today, this would be a good opportunity to talk a little bit about why I do the He-Man reviews in the first place. As I mentioned probably before in previous podcasts, on my blog, somewhere else possibly, He-Man and the Masters of the Universe is my favorite cartoon series. It's hands down, absolutely my favorite cartoon series. And the motivation to do the He-Man episode reviews They, of course, started in 2012. I'd done a couple of videos that dealt with that. But it was 2012 when I really started to make actual serious video reviews, is when He-Man episode reviews started. And then I made the 3 series. And now it's become the thing where whenever I have the time and energy, I will do a He-Man review. So the thing that something about YouTube, which I've never really obsessed about, and I know this is something that people that have monetized channels obsess about all the time. So my channel's not monetized. It never has been. It's just a principal thing for me. People often obsess about, like, finding their own thing, finding the thing that only they do. And I've never obsessed about that. I never go around looking at other people's videos to check that this thing hasn't been talked about before, because I think that limits creativity. I don't want to limit my creativity. And also, if it sounds like I'm repeating somebody else's stuff, but I didn't know that they did it, who cares? Who the fuck cares? Just a word of advice for anybody who really wants to get into doing videos, not just YouTube, but just videos in general. Like, don't be afraid to imitate other people, because that's how you usually get started before you kind of find your own voice. But the thing is, there just aren't a lot of people on YouTube that talk about He-Man. There's the official He-Man website, the official He-Man channel that has videos by James E. Talk of He-Man.org fame, but that's it. There's really not a lot of He-Man stuff on YouTube. So I thought, what the hell? It's my favorite cartoon series, so I might as well do videos on it. And so that's the reason, that's kind of the base motivation, the fact that it's my favorite cartoon show and the fact that there just aren't a lot of videos about the series. So that's been the motivation, and I've tried to get a little way, I've tried to do He-Man reviews without doing He-Man reviews, but with the She-Ra reviews, but I have bad news about that. Is that the She-Ra reviews have kind of hit a bit of they've hit a bit of a slump recently, because so many She-Ra episodes have been taken off YouTube, and I need the footage to do the video reviews. So there is an official She-Ra channel, but it has not been updated in a long while. There's a few episodes there that I might review at some point, and the official He-Man channel is pretty good. If you want to see the He-Man Christmas special, for instance, you can actually see it online, but that is the basic problem there. So, getting back to the Temple of the Sun episode now, there was a part of this video that originally I was planning to have that I cut out completely. And you might remember when I said in the beginning, because it was 2 episodes, I didn't plan to make Trouble's middle name into a comparison review with the Temple of the Sun. It's just that I happened to remember that this episode takes place in the Temple of the Sun, and the Temple of the Sun is also in a prior He-Man episode. And the fact that they depict the Temple of the Sun completely differently, that was what motivated me. Okay, now I got an angle. I got a comparison to something else. Because the ugly truth, which I kind of laid down at the very end of that review, was that neither one of these episodes is super good. One episode starts really well and then kind of teeters off. The other episode starts a bit weak and then gets steadily better. And that was interesting. I expected myself to like Temple of the Sun way more than Trouble's middle name, and in the end it kind of turned the other way around. I actually ended up liking Trouble's middle name a little bit more, because of course I had to rewatch the episodes when I was doing the reviews. And because of that, that also gave me another angle, which I put in the script originally, but I never actually finished that part of the script, which was I was talking about which one is canon to the series. And when I did the cartoon theories on Rainbow Warrior and Orko, those were topics that I talked about because, even if you don't know He-Man that well, for instance, if you look at Rainbow Warrior, it still talks about a subject that I think everybody can relate to, which is continuity. And in He-Man's case, the lack of continuity. I mean, there is continuity in the series. There actually is. If you look at, but it's always like these 3 episodes clearly follow each other, or these 2 episodes. And then this character reappears here, 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 and here, and we're clearly seeing some kind of an arc going. So there is continuity. It's not very firmly established. So the Rainbow video. So even if you don't know much about He-Man, that's still something that you can watch, and I'm still really happy with that video. Actually, it's probably one of the best ones I've done based off of He-Man. And then the Orko. What does Orko look like? Well, that's you have to be a little bit more of a He-Man fan to get into that. It's honestly not something that I'm horribly bothered with, but I realized because I had all these different elements I could draw upon, I felt really self-conscious making it, so that's why I threw in originally that joke about the sketch artist's rendering of what Orko looks like under the mask, because I felt really unsure if people were going to find it interesting, and because I kind of needed a punchline for the end of the video anyway. So basically, what this review was kind of shaping up to be, I guess you could say, it was shaping up to become the unofficial third He-Man Cartoon Theory episode. Here's the dealio, though. Then I proceeded, like I always proceed, when I do these comparative He-Man reviews. I have a very set structure. I started with a rundown of the plot, and people always give me shit for that, like a rundown of the plot, like it's a big spoiler or anything. Dude, it's a He-Man episode. You probably already guessed what's going to happen. I just kind of go through the bullet points of what are the interesting plot sections of the episode, and if they're not interesting, then usually that's a sign that, it's not a very good episode. But then I go into more individual highlights and characters, and then a general theme, or just the thing that makes that particular episode notable. And sometimes I get really lucky, like with the Secret of Grayskull episode, which had a lot to talk about. But then some He-Man episodes, there just isn't a lot to talk about. And that's something I'm still very self-conscious about. I'm still afraid of doing short He-Man reviews because I'm afraid, well, I said this and this and this, and now it's not very interesting. So I always want to have an angle when I go into doing the review, just because I want there to be something interesting to discuss about those episodes. And in that episode's case, that's why I like doing the comparative review thing, because I get to talk about both episodes. I get to talk about elements in both and compare and contrast and find things that the other episode has that the other one doesn't, and vice versa. So I went through the thing where I did the rundown of Temple of the Sun, I did the rundown of Trouble's middle name. I thought about, and you will notice I never actually said what Prankster's real name was. That's because I felt it wasn't important. Honestly, I just wanted, and I just couldn't be bothered to just check the script, to check the episode, and try to make my best guess of how he says it. I mean, it's the Mr. Mixapedalk, Rumpelstiltskin kind of bullshit, and I felt like that's the thing. Like, I hated, I think it's kind of cool whenever it's a J. Michael Straczynski script. You can definitely tell as a J. Michael Straczynski script, because he has a very particular style he likes to do He-Man episodes in. He's not maybe the best writer, but there is always something kind of special about him. But he makes up the dumbest fucking names for things. So that's the thing that I have, the Valerie or Valerie. They literally have two completely different pronunciations for that name, and that led to the Valerie joke. And I hope the 5 people out there who got that joke, enjoyed it. Okay, but getting back on track, what was gonna happen in the video after I reviewed both episodes is that I was going to actually try to establish which one I thought was canon. But once I was done reviewing both episodes and contrasting them, I came to the conclusion, you know what, I have a decently long video now, okay? This doesn't need anything else to be tacked on at the end, and I also came to a conclusion that people probably wouldn't care which one is canon. Because frankly, even I don't care. It's just that this is the way my brain works, is that I like making sense of things, even things that don't make fucking sense. So this is why the thing about the Rainbow Warrior always bothers me so much. I hate throwaway lines in movies and television shows because they can be misinterpreted in so many different ways. So for me, I have to at least make some kind of logic in my head that makes some kind of sense about that. So I made the decision not to keep writing the script any further, and I altered that bit. Originally, it was going to say, which one is canon? Well, let's look at the episodes, and then I'll give you my thoughts, and I changed it to say, I don't remember the exact words, but it's something like, which one is canon? Well, I'll leave it up to your discretion, because really, that's, it's just my shitty opinion anyway, so, who cares? But, okay, so this is why I'm doing the mini-cast, because now I wanted to tell people, what do I actually think about the subject? Because I did give it a lot of thought, even though none of it ended up in the actual episode review. So, let's get back to Temple of the Sun. Now, another thing, this was already pointed out in the comments by somebody. I didn't point it out in the episode review, and I decided not to do that because it was an interesting piece of trivia, but it was not personally significant for me, which is the fact that there's a Black Star cameo in the background, which is the little statue holding the sword when Neptune is scouring through. I've read that piece of trivia from He-Man.org like a million years ago, and I still remember it. I still know what the fuck that statue is. The thing is, I never watched Black Star. I've seen the intro, that's it. And Black Star, in case people don't know what that is, and not to confuse it with Brave Star, which is a show Filmation did later, it came before He-Man. It was another Space Barbarian show. Some people say that it was kind of like the prototype for He-Man, which is incorrect because Mattel was the one who made He-Man. Anyway, but the reason I didn't mention it in the review is because it's an interesting factoid, don't get me wrong, but it's not personally significant. You'll notice that things I talk about when I talk about trivia things, it's always stuff that personally I'm interested in. That's when I do, like when I did the He-Man trivia video, for instance, when I talked about the fact that He-Man is called Musclor in the French-speaking territories. Well, that's because I love watching cartoon intros in different languages, and I, of course, because He-Man's my favorite cartoon, I've of course seen it if not seen, at least heard almost every single different language version of it, and that's when I for the first time heard Musclor being said by the characters. So that's why that is significant. I have the power, the fact that it was a Mattel CEO who said that, or the president of Mattel that said that about the He-Man prototype toys. That's significant for me, and that's important for me, and that's the kind of trivia I like. But if it's just some random bit, and talking about things like Paul Dini, who people know worked on Batman the Animated Series and all the other Warner Brothers superhero cartoons, and then he got his start in He-Man. That's personally significant for me because those are both shows I love, He-Man and Batman the Animated Series, and Justice League Unlimited. But yeah, it has to be like personally significant trivia for me to mention it. Okay, so what about the canon status of these? And I want to stress right here at the beginning that I have no authority on this particular subject at all, so this is all my speculation. And another thing, you can easily make an argument for either episode. The reason it even matters to me at all is the fact that I want there to be some kind of continuity in my head from episode to episode, and this clashes with me kind of heavily. Now, like I said, I wanted to like the Temple of the Sun episode more, because, like I said, and this is true, it's no secret, I like the first season of He-Man way more than the second season, for a number of reasons, mostly because that's the season that I've seen the most, and the second season is something that I just completely forget stuff like that, like the fact that Negator came back for an episode. So, let's make the argument for Temple of the Sun, and the Temple of the Sun, the thing that really just kind of that either closes off or connects it to the rest of the series is the fact that the Temple of the Sun is abandoned. That's the main thing. In Trouble's middle name, the temple is inhabited. In Temple of the Sun, it's abandoned, and Neptune just finds the entrance and scours through for the Sun Scarab, and that's the whole premise of the episode. Now, interestingly, there is another episode where the Temple of the Sun is shown to be abandoned. I didn't mention it in the review. I thought about mentioning it. In the end, I didn't. And that is the Great Book's mystery, because Batros's lair is very, very clearly the lair where he brings all the books he stole from Eternia is clearly supposed to be the Temple of the Sun. And that is the thing that is the clincher for this episode, but it depends on how you want to look at it. Okay, because first of all, people know this. People know this about me. I don't like the Great Books Mystery. I think it's a terrible He-Man episode. It was featured on my bad He-Man episode review video for the second season. And but it is another episode that acknowledges that the Temple of the Sun is abandoned. Well, big question then. Do I consider the Great Books Mystery to be canon? Well, there is a discrepancy there that people might cling on to. It's one that I mentioned myself, which is the fact that Batros very, very clearly has the Horde insignia on him. So so in the toy line, Batros was a member of the evil Horde, and he was turned into a standalone. He was turned into a one-off villain for He-Man and the Masters of the Universe. I don't think he ever appeared on She-Ra. I'm not sure, but that's the thing. At that point, at that juncture, when Batros appeared, the evil Horde had not been established in the He-Man animated series. So you could easily discredit the Great Books Mystery as being canon based on the fact that for some reason it has an evil Horde character who's not a member of the evil Horde. There is a possibility of coming up with another explanation, is that he is or was a member of the evil Horde, but he was like left on Eternia, or maybe left of his own volition, which I find I don't find that one very credible, because traveling between Eternia and Etheria usually requires a lot of power, and you wouldn't do that if it wasn't necessary or intentional. Like the Horde had tried to invade Eternia before, but they failed, and for the rest of the series it kind of seems like Hordak doesn't just give a shit anymore about Eternia. Most of all because of, he dumped Skeletor there, so there's that. And you could easily ask the question of, well, why the hell does Batros still carry the Horde insignia if he is not with the Horde? And I don't know, but it doesn't close off the possibility that that Batros might be a canon character, that the whole episode might be canon. It like I said, it all depends on that. But there is like definite proof in another episode that that goes together with this episode's view of the Temple of the Sun, which is that it's abandoned and it's used as it's used as a lair by another character in another episode. So there is an argument to be made with that. Now, so that's what that all depends on. Now, as for the episode itself, I don't have much of a need to actually say that it's absolutely necessarily canon, because nothing really consequential happens in the episode itself. That's the problem I have with it, is that the plot of that episode isn't significant to the He-Man canon. It's just another episode where the sorceress gets captured. It features a one-off villain that we never ever see again. So, what about Trouble's middle name? Well, this is the thing. Like, I have my beef with Trouble's middle name, and I'll get to that in a minute. But the main thing that connects it, and possibly is the definitive clincher for it to be a canon episode, is the fact that Negator is in it. Okay? A returning character is a much stronger claim than potentially the same, because even in the Batros episode, I don't think they ever actually say it's the Temple of the Sun, but it very clearly is. From the distance, it's the background that was used in the Temple of the Sun. The cave inside of it looks exactly the same as the inside of the Temple of the Sun in the Temple of the Sun episode. I don't think there was any intention to imply that it was the Temple of the Sun. Don't get me wrong, I think they used it just because it was a background that they had at hand and ready to use. But Negator is clearly the same character as in the game plan, and that establishes clear continuity between those two episodes. That Negator was in that one episode, he's in this episode. The NURBS are not there, so the NURBS are clearly dead. So that's another thing that connects it to it. And the other thing is, maybe then the possible connection to Trolla. I have a problem with that. I will talk about it in just a second. But I will say, like, that is a much stronger thing. Like, especially, here's the thing, the continuity, okay, this is the continuity logic, for instance. Malek is a character who appears in the Wizard of Stone Mountain. and he comes back for an appearance in The Witch and the Warrior, which establishes a character called Kothos. Kothos comes back in the episode Revenge is Never Sweet, in which they call him Kathos. But here's the thing. Are all those episodes canon? Absolutely they are, because they establish a clear-cut continuity from one episode to the next. The fact that they get the character's name wrong in the final episode is a frustratingly annoying error, but it is not a continuity. But it doesn't break the continuity for me. These episodes are canon. That's it. That is absolutely true. Even though I think Revenge is Never Sweet is a bad episode. And that's the point here, is that this is not about, like, in my head, the He-Man canon is not about which episodes are good and which episodes are bad. That has nothing to do with it. It has everything to do with, does this episode contain elements which are recognized by other elements in the canon? And that's the thing about the Magic Falls, which is, in my view, one of the best Cobra Khan episodes. But it includes an element which is clearly not part of the He canon, which is the Scepter of Power. And the only thing that clings on to the He canon in that instance is the fact that it has Cobra Khan in it. And Cobra Khan is in a bunch of episodes. So every episode that has Cobra Khan in it instantly is canon in my book. So that's the long and short of it. So we have Negator. So the only way this episode would not be canon if Negator isn't canon, and I'm not willing to say Negator is not canon because he's not just some throwaway character. There are episodes with terrible throwaway characters that I can easily say, okay, that never happened. That's garbage. But you know. That is not the case here. Now, I do have one big beef with this, and this has everything to do with Prankster. Prankster, I like the idea that Prankster is a Trollin who doesn't cover his face. But they do every possible thing to make it seem like he's not a proper Trollin. Number one is the fact that he comes from the other side of Trolla. And that's a small thing. That is a very small thing. I can accept that, okay, maybe they still look the same on that side of the planet, and it's just like the land of practical jokesters, which is what Orko says in the episode. That's fine. What I can't get behind is the fact that Orko says the words, because when he says his real name, he'll have to go back to his own dimension. What the fuck was that about? First of all, Orko comes from Trolla. So, in other words, it wouldn't be he goes back to his dimension. He should have said he goes back to my dimension, which I still have a problem with because I don't see Trolla being in another dimension. I think Trolla is supposed to be in the same universe as He-Man. It maybe has wonky laws of physics because it's a magical world, but I have a real big problem with that whole going into the other dimension part. Why? Why do I have that big problem? Because that's another fucking carryover from the fact that this character is a fucking ripoff of Mr. Mixapedal because he's from the 5th dimension in the Superman comics. So there it makes sense. There it makes sense because he is literally from another dimension. You know, he's an interdimensional prankster who is from another dimension, period. But Trolla has never been in any other episode in any other episode has it ever been mentioned that Trolla is supposed to be in another dimension. We just know that it's far away somewhere. So, you know, the Eternians have limited space travel capabilities, you know, but they can't. But even Etheria is so far away that the Horde can maybe make it to the whole Horde fleet can make it there on their spaceships, but everybody else uses a fucking magical teleporter because it's so fucking far away. So that really conflicts with my internal logic of the series, personally. The fact that Orko would say something like that he has to go back to his dimension, his dimension, not my dimension. That is the one thing that I am willing to say possibly breaks down the continuity for me. But like I said, I have no authority on this topic. Maybe Trolla is in another dimension. Maybe this is just like, J. Michael Straczynski's plot writing, again, being less than admirable, because he has some bad episodes to his name. Like, he's got some really good ones, but he does have some bad ones as well. So, that's it. Like, that's basically what the whole thing would have... And you can tell there's really no punchline to this. Like, I would want to accept Temple of the Sun as canon, but I have to accept Trouble's middle name to be even more firmly canon because it has a returning character, which is Negator. And because Negator gets stuck in the Sunstone, he never comes back. Now, in this episode, they actually teased the idea that he would come back. I don't believe in Game Plan they did. So, that's another thing. In Game Plan, Negator escapes, but they never, imply that he might come back. In this episode, he gets trapped within the fucking Sunstone, and they say, oh, he'll probably be back. How? How? He got absorbed into a magical rock. That's kind of yeah. But, maybe that should have been the punchline, and maybe I could have done it. Well, anyway. So that's why I wanted to do this minicast, which just to discuss why that part got cut out, and because, some of you might have tuned off long before I even got to this part, so I guess that'll be the natural cap-off point. So the next time you'll be hearing the minicast, it will be me and Kaiser will be answering questions from listeners, and then, of course, then it will be the match game. And we'll see after that if we keep doing any more minicasts. But thank you for listening. If you did indeed listen all the way to the end, I'm Hannu TheHande Mäkinen, and see you on the next one. Bye.